MCOMnet, second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
And it is indeed time for Skynet. Does anybody need to use the repeater before we begin? Please do so now. This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Please come now. This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me this evening, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110 decibel niner. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, which is whiskey5friedchicken.org, W5FC.org right now for a complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long. This is structured in a bunch of parts. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society. That discussion topic of the evening was space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and 73 round. We may or may not get to all of those, but we're going to go ahead and take check-ins now. So I'm going to start with low-power short-time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low-power short-time.
This is Alpha Alpha 5 Sierra Alpha, Sean Irving, short time.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf, Uniform Sierra. It's Gus, far, far northeast Dallas, low power.
Kilo India 5 Golf Romeo Hotel, Melissa northeast Dallas, near Gus, low power.
This is WV4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power, Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India.
All right, on our low-power short time, I got AA5SA, that's Sean in Irving, short time, W5GUS Gus in Dallas, low power, KI5GRH, Miss Melissa in northeast Dallas, low power, and WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, low power. Any other low-power short time, please come now. All right, very good. Before we move on to the next section of check-ins, I'll go ahead and ask anybody who has checked in so far, do you have any announcements or bulletins you would like to bring now? Please come with your call sign, of course. None, we will move to general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Oscar Bravo, Philip from Crandall.
This is KG5 UFR, Jacob and Dallas.
Kilo Echo 5, Papa Oscar Echo, Lee in Mansfield.
This is Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richards.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz Mesquite.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
guess we'll hold up there. It's a little slow this evening, but I'm sure everybody will check in. Let me get those folks that just checked in. I've got K5KOB Philip in Crandall. Welcome back. KG5 UFR Jacob in Dallas over on Echolink. I have you checked in. KE5POE Lee in Mansfield. AA5AH Roberts and Richardson. WB5OZL Miss Brendan DeSoto. KF5JJ Chaz in Mesquite. KG5 WVL, that's James in Carrollton. Most of them are the regulars, so I'll take additional check-ins. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich and Rockwall, AG 5 p.m.
Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
Kilo Golf 5, uniform, Kilo uniform, David, Mesquite.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Ranch.
Whiskey Foxtrot 5, Delta Romeo Delta, Dennis in Flower Mound.
All right, let me go ahead and get those folks. So you got AEG 5 p.m., Rich and Rockwell. I heard your net tonight. It was very good. I was getting ready for Skynet, but I did listen in. KG5ZMG, that's Joe in Arlington. KG5UKU, David in Mesquite. KF5ZBL, Mr. Bill Farmers Branch, and WF5DRD, Dennis in Flower Mound. Did I get your call right, Dennis?
Yes, sir. Call sign change from KF5FRT, WF5DRD.
Well, excellent, Dennis. I recognize the old call sign, and welcome back to Skynet. All right, I'll take another round of check-ins over air, and then I'll head to Echolink. So one more round over air. If you would like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu Whiskey, J, near weather.
All right, very good. We squeaked another one in. I've got KG5BZWJ near Weatherford. We have you checked in. I'm going to go over to Echolink now, and I'll give everybody... Oh, there's a few that have not checked in yet on Echolink. I will go ahead and take you. Please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. I will give you extra time. Echolink only, please.
Net control, this is Whiskey 0, Mike Bravo Charlie. This is Shane.
I'm Bethany, Blue Springs. Hi, Dallas.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tank X-Ray at Lake Livingston down in South Texas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Sierra, Billy and Sherman.
All right, I think that's everybody on the Echolink list. They are W0MBC, that's Shane and Bethany in Blue Springs. Hi, Bethany. K5KTX, that's Miss Kelly in Livingston. Interesting. I thought you were local tonight, but you are long distance. Thank you for checking in. K5PD, yes. Boy, what? I know that call like the back of my hand. I should know that, write it down correctly. That's Billy and Sherman. All right, I will open it up to anyone else who would like to check in before we move on. Please come with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. All right, that's pretty good. 21 check-ins on this round. So let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any announcements, general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come with your call. Boy, what a quiet group tonight. I guess everybody enjoyed the weather. I went and bought plants, so, and I didn't get my nap, so if I fall asleep during the net, you'll know why. Let's see here. I can give you a few announcements. Most of these you already know, but I will bring them up anyway. Don't forget that AMSAT, there's actually 3 nets available here in the Dallas area. Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. You can go to the national AMSAT net that's on Echolink. Just look for AMSAT as one of the groups. And you can also listen. This originates in Houston, Texas. You can go to amsatnet.com and listen in when it is live. Dallas AMSAT-Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth is every Tuesday, also at 8 o'clock on this repeater, 146.880, PL110.9er. So Tom N5HYT is the net control. And we can use a little extra activity over there. I know there's 2 nets. He does one on Wednesday evening as well, which is at 9 o'clock on the Arlington repeater. That's at 147.140 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. That's positive offset. So join us on both, join Tom on both of those nets if at all possible. Now, the DARC has a whole bunch of nets. I'll quickly go through them. Mondays are a good night with alternating nets. First week at 7 o'clock, Ham Fixin's net. That's about cooking and cooking tips. It's very popular. The second week is MCOM 101, N5KRG. Kevin does that net, and it's non-denominational, so you can learn all about emergency communications, and folks there during that net can help you out if you would like to join a served agency. I'll get it right. Third week is the second helping of Ham Fixin's net. Fourth week is GeekNet. What's GeekNet? Well, we talk about amateur radio first and foremost, but then we expand into computers and programming, whatever you want, anything that works for you, suggestions on things, Raspberry Pi, you name it, it's discussed. And when there is a 5th Monday of the week, we have a surprise net. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. And that's always a lot of fun. It's usually participation, and sometimes there's even prizes. And I already told you about AMSAT East at, did I put 8 o'clock? Oh, did I do that right? I got it. Yeah, I did. Okay. Sometimes I just look at it and think, I've looked at these scripts for so long, I think, did I do it right? And I did. AMSAT East, 8 o'clock, not 7, 8 o'clock. And then Fridays is the CERT City simulation. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KF5GRH, has checked in on his net control and coordinates everything. So visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday, CERT City. All are welcome. Saturdays, of course, are the night of nets, starting with at 7 to 8 o'clock, TechNet, followed by Skynet at 9 o'clock. We also have on the first and third Sundays the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, better known as MODA. So you can find out about things with the DARC, what's going on in activities. And then finally we have our daily nets, Monday through Friday, the lunch bunch at 12 noon. There's always a survey question, so come and eat with us. Then the ARRL National Traffic System Training Net is every night at 6:30 p.m. on this repeater. So if you want to learn about formalized traffic, that's the place to come. quite interesting, and I made light of it, of course, but it actually is kind of accurate. So here you go. Nemo had always wondered about his name. He knew somehow he was special, but at the same time, he also knew he'd also be trouble. At 118, he'd seen it all, not to mention having racked over $1 million in unpaid parking tickets. It wasn't something he was proud of, but after 100 years of parking in the no parking zone in front of Starbucks, the total penalties had reached critical mass. He then remembered the day he answered at age 9 a newspaper ad for the, quote, captain of an atomic submarine, and his job was to disrupt steamship routes, farm underwater kelp, and keep a secret volcano base clean and waxed. It had changed his life many times. He wondered how he might not have answered the ad and instead built a defective software operating system anyone could use and would have to update every 15 seconds. He smiled to himself of how much money he could potentially make from this leaky, buggy operating system. Join us for the cult classic you didn't know was a movie, let alone a cult classic, but it is, and now you know. The movie is Mr. Nobody from 2009 at 10:30 p.m. And for those of you who sat through Primer, whatever it was, is the most complicated time travel looping storyline, this one's easier, but not by a lot. Okay, let's see here. You can keep up with all the DARC events and activities by going to the club website, which is w5fc.org. And it's a very active website. It's updated daily, actually, with all sorts of interesting things, usually club activities and any announcements for any of the nets that are going on. Drop by. All right, well, let's see here. I'm going to see if there's any additional check-ins at this point. Usually Bill is checked in, so let's give it a whirl. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, India Victor Juliet, Justin, Mobile, Red Oak.
All right, well, we picked up one more. That's Justin, K5IVJ. He's in Red Oak and Mobile. You can set a watch to him and where he's at this time of the evening. He's always mobile, and he's always headed towards or inside Red Oak. Well, welcome, Justin. All right, let's go to Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where events where and when you can look through a telescope, which is probably maybe later this year. Anyone from TAS like to talk about the Texas Astronomical Society? Please come with your call.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha.
All right, thank you, Chaz. I figured you'd be that guy, but we have two others on here that I know about as TAS members. But go ahead. What do you got for us this evening?
That's true. I know that Kelly and Billy could do this as well. But the next Texas Astronomical Society Dallas Club meeting will be on Friday, April the 23rd at 7:30 p.m. The featured speaker will be Dr. Erin McDonald, and her topic will be the physics of Star Trek. In 2019, she was hired as the official science consultant for the ever-expanding Star Trek universe and is currently working on 6 shows in development. TAS Club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of the meeting. Hopefully later this year, as Tom said, we might resume having face-to-face meetings, and maybe we'll resume having public observing sessions. You can check out their website at texasastro.org for updated information and details. This is KF5, JHA, back to our net control. I think that's Tom, KE5ICX.
Very good. Thank you, Chaz. And I made a mistake. I loaded the wrong deck of slides. So when it comes to your turn to start with the was up, give me a few seconds and I'll tell you when I'm ready. Let's see here. Next up is National Space Society. That would normally be Bill, but he is possibly absent. N5BB. Bill, are you out there from KE5ICX?
Yes, Tom, KE5ICX in the group. This is N5BB. May I continue with National Space Society events? I apologize, I had an important phone call.
Yes, Bill, I have you checked in, so go right ahead.
Very good. This is N5BB, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I am the membership director of the local North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. We normally have our meetings on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. If we were not in the pandemic, we would be meeting at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving on Highway 183. But we are still operating virtually, and we have a meeting on WebEx, and the meeting itself starts at 4 p.m., the presentation. That means, since it's the second Sunday of the month, we will have a meeting tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. The topic of this meeting will be a presentation by a new flight controller at Johnson Spacecraft Center. He is in the controller group of 2021. So he is brand new, and I am looking for the information here. Here it is. I got his presentation. So, darn it, his name is not on this. I'll think of his name in a minute. Anyway, he is going to be discussing how controllers do what they're doing and what's going on with NASA and all that kind of stuff. So if you would like to participate in that, if you'd like to be a visitor to listen to him, a NASA employee, that's a new director, you can send me an email at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM, or N5BB at ARRL.net. That's November 5, Bravo, Bravo, at ARRL.net. His name is Brandon Lloyd, BRANDON Lloyd, and he's a Johnson Spacecraft employee there. So, another thing from National Space Society. Tomorrow evening, I think it's going to be 10:30 local time, something like that, local time, is when they plan to take the Ingenuity rover and do its little short, maybe 30-second test jump. So, you know, because of the huge delay getting messages to or from Mars, it's going to be pre-programmed. And what it's going to be doing, they hope, is just going up, hovering for, I think, no more than about 30 seconds. I don't know the exact time. And then landing again. It will be running its cameras, and they'll also be listening and watching it from the Perseverance rover. But got to remember, this is not live streaming. So they're going to be recording all of that. They've then got to retrieve those recordings, because the Perseverance will have to pull them in from the Ingenuity rover. So it's going to have to transfer all the images over to the Perseverance, and then they're going to have to send them up through, probably through a relay through another satellite orbiting Mars to Earth. This is going to take a while. So at, I believe it's 2:30 in the morning, Monday morning, this is the middle of the night now, 2:30 Monday morning, roughly, NASA's going to start a streaming presentation where they're going to talk about the results of that first flight attempt on another world, which is going to be really exciting. That's all that I've got. Again, if anybody wants to attend the NSS meeting tomorrow afternoon at 4, the virtual WebEx meeting, send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to send you an invite. This is N5BB. Thank you, Tom, and I'm sorry I was so late. N5BB clear.
That's fine, Bill. It happens to all of us. No problem. You religiously check in on this net, so I get a little worried when I don't hear from you. I think something's up. And I'm usually right, but in this case it's just a phone call, and that's a good thing. Okay, this is KE5ICX. My name's Tom, and I get to pick the topics to discuss. That's also a sneaky way of getting the net control to produce content. So tonight, I saw some, wrong thing, right thing here. Let me do it again. See, I gotta run the slideshow too, so if you want to see any of the pictures here, you can see it. This is from, topic, I think this came from Astronomy magazine, but it doesn't say so. But here, I'm gonna put a slide up. Radio telescopes on the moon. Now, this is something we've talked about quite a bit through the years, at least in astronomical circles. And Arecibo, which is now dead, should we build a replacement on the moon? Well, this idea has been around for quite a while. And when the 60-year-old Arecibo Observatory collapsed in 2020, the crash didn't just take down one of the world's prominent radio telescopes, it also dealt a massive blow to the future of radio astronomy. Arecibo may have been old, but it also had unique capabilities that made it ideal for studying things like gravitational waves, as well as mapping the surfaces of asteroids as they slip by Earth. Now radio astronomers around the world are debating what comes next. Should Arecibo be rebuilt anew? If so, where would the money come from? Those questions don't have any easy answers, but the discussions are happening. Preliminary plans for another revolutionary radio telescope continue to inch forward every day. And interestingly, these folks have led NASA to reconsider a bold idea that was first dreamed up a half-century ago, building a behemoth radio telescope on the far side of the moon. When the 60-year-old Arecibo Observatory collapsed in 2020, the crash didn't just take down one of the world's prominent radio telescopes. Oh, wait a minute. Looks like that's there twice. All right, let's move on to the next thing. As early as the 1960s, astronomers wanted to build a radio telescope on the far side of the moon. That's because the lunar far side always faces away from the Earth, which means the entire moon acts as a sort of shield that blocks Earth's cacophony of outgoing radio noise. This creates an environment where scientists could theoretically observe the universe in wavelengths that can't be easily analyzed from our planet or even from orbit. And Arecibo on the moon would be more than a replacement, though. The premise is similar to the way astronomers decided to replace the Hubble Space Telescope. Rather than replicating the original, the community embraced the idea of building something entirely different. The James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST, used insights gleaned from Hubble's tenure. But JWST was specifically built to study the universe primarily through infrared light, while the Hubble focuses on visible and ultraviolet light. That spectral shift means JWST will be able to investigate previously unexplored aspects of the universe with impeccable detail. The same is true of building a large radio telescope on the moon. While Arecibo dedicated a half dozen decades to studying radio waves at the centimeter and millimeter scale, a lunar radio telescope could monitor wavelengths larger than a meter, something astronomers can't do from Earth. if an irascible-like observatory was built on the moon, it could potentially spot many exotic cosmic phenomena, such as auroras around distant Earth-like exoplanets. More alluringly, it could even pick up radio signals from the earliest days of the comet, before the first stars and galaxies were born. Frank Drake, a world-renowned astronomer, even once pitched the idea for a very large Arecibo-type telescopes on the moon at a NASA conference in 1986. Drake reasoned that utilizing a lunar crater would minimize the need to build large structural elements. Some panels, platforms, and a slew of cables might suffice, he suggested. The moon also holds so many craters that it would be relatively easy to find one with a sturdy enough rim that can serve as an anchor point for this telescope support cables. This would avoid the cost of expensive towers that anchored the cables at Arecibo. In fact, the telescope collapsed in 2020 after the cables attached to its towers failed. Reasonable valley and crater cross-sections fulfill this need quite nicely, Drake wrote. In this case, a substantial saving in cost of material accrues. This approach can be used to build Arecibo-type telescopes on the moon or on the Earth at substantial savings over the cost of an actual Arecibo design. In recent years, NASA has shown support for these ideas at levels never seen before. The space agency even funded studies on several early proposals to finally build an Arecibo-like observatory on the moon. Of these proposals, the Lunar Crater Radio Telescope, or LCRT, echoes some of the same ideas Drake brought up a generation ago. But unlike previous mission designers imagined, the latest iterations of moon-based telescopes wouldn't rely on astronauts to construct them. Septarshi Bandilopan, you try and say that, boy. A robotics technologist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and leader of the LCRT project team says they intend to build LCRT using simple lunar rovers like the ones NASA has already designed. The LCRT would land a spacecraft full of rovers outside the craters. These would receive the support wires and take them to the crater rim and assemble the mesh system spanning approximately 0.6 miles or 1 kilometer. However, the whole system would have to fit inside of a single lunar landing spacecraft like Blue Origin's Blue Moon. By depending on robots instead of astronauts, the project can save a significant amount of money. Any mission involving astronauts requires extensive and expensive safety precautions. Every potential problem requires extra scrutiny and engineered safeguards. For example, sharp edges can slice through spacesuits, so they're avoided on crewed flights. But rounded edges don't allow you to maximize cargo space, which you'd want to do for a robotic trip to the moon. NASA has also already begun testing a versatile model of the rover called Duaxle, which could be used for a number of different lunar missions. Among other things, Duaxle can climb crater walls, and as a bonus, it's relatively cheap. If we can send 10 of these robots and 2 of them die, it's fine, Bandolove says. 2 of them are dead, but 8 robots still working? It's not like that with astronauts. No kidding. And this is KE5ICX. However, even with all the potential advantages of robotic builders, the current cost of the technology likely puts the mission out of reach. Sapart, estimates that building a radio telescope on the moon would cost billions of dollars. That's why his team is trying to develop new kinds of cables and mesh that would be dramatically cheaper to use than what's available now. LCERT's initial study relied on $120,000 of NASA's Innovative Advanced Concepts Project funding to investigate the concept. On the next stage of their mission plan would let engineers get to work on developing the mesh. There we go. By spring, Pandalone says his team hopes to publish their initial results. We have a good first design now that makes sense, and we could potentially fly. If we can get us $4 or $5 billion, we could launch it tomorrow. But despite the enthusiasm, Bandalone isn't optimistic that we'll see an Arecibo-style telescope on the moon in the near future. After all, science tends to be slow. I would be very surprised if I see LISR deployed before I retire. And I'm a very young scientist, he says. These things are hard. These questions we're trying to solve are hard. And the science windows these questions will open are everything is hard. If it was easy, we would have done it already. Well, yeah, he's right. So that was the article. Check out astronomy.com. I think that's where it came from, but I forgot to put it in there. The article is written by Eric Betz, B-E-T-Z. It was published January 6, 2021. Go look it up. If you put that in your favorite search engine, I think it'll pop right up. But that's the article, and that was the comments. All right. Let me go ahead and see if there's any additional check-ins. Anyone else like to join us this evening? Please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Mike Charlie, Brian in Roanoke.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Papa Hotel, John, Plano.
Kilo 5, Bravo Whiskey Charlie, Grapevine.
All right, I picked up 3 more. I'm going to need a couple of fills, though. I've got Kilo Bravo 5, question mark, Mike Charlie. Brian, you were covered over with a double, so could you give me your full call?
Yeah, that's Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Mike Charlie.
Great, I got you. KB5DMC, Brian in Roanoke. KG5PPH, John in Plano. And the next station I got, K5BWC in Grapevine. If you don't mind, can I have your name from my log?
Kilo 5, Bravo Whiskey Charlie, Grapevine, this is Albert.
All right, very good. K5BWC, Grapevine, and that is Albert. Thank you for checking in, Albert. Appreciate it. Let me go over a look on Echolink. Anyone on Echolink like to join, please come now. All right, well, let's move along. We're doing pretty well on our check-ins. Chaz, I've got the right slides loaded up, I believe, so go right ahead from KE5ICX.
Why, thank you, Tom. You were a great multitasker. Did you see what I have over here in Echolink? It says you're wearing another Brandis t-shirt. I guess it's just a plain shirt. Okay, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree's in astrophysics, and I'm the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet, What's Up? Slide number 2, please. Exploring the evening and April the 16th sky, you'll find that Mars and the Moon will be in conjunction in the western sky. Okay, slide number 3 on April the 24th, looking low in the western evening sky, you can find Venus and Mercury in conjunction. Venus will be the brighter object and will be on the left, and Mercury will be on the right and dimmer. Slide number 4, on the night of April 21st, 22nd, a Lyrid meteor shower peaks with about 18 meteors per hour. Of course, you'll see more meteors after midnight because that's the side that the Earth is running into them. When the moon is in the sky, very few meteors can be seen, and on April the 21st, the moon will set around 1 a.m. So after that, you'll be able to see more meteors. Slide number 5, please. The moon was at its third quarter on April the 4th, so the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. On April the 11th, the moon will be at its new phase. That's tomorrow. On April the 14th, the moon will be at its apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that's furthest from the Earth. And on April the 20th, the moon will be at its first quarter phase. Slide number 6, please, sir. So the moon moves counterclockwise around the Earth in its orbit. New moon is the beginning of the lunar cycle, which is in alignment or in conjunction with the sun. This is an exact moment. In fact, on March 13th, the moon was new exactly at 4:23 a.m. Central Time. Most of the time, we just say the new moon happens on a certain day, and we don't worry about the exact time. The name new moon is because it is at the beginning of the lunar cycle. We can't see a new moon for two reasons. It's very close to the sun in the sky, and the sunlit side of the moon is facing away from the Earth. If the moon covers up the sun, then we have a solar eclipse. More about eclipses at another time. Slide number 7, please. When we see a thin crescent moon in the evening sky, a couple days after new moon, we call this a young moon. For several days around new moon, we have what is known as a crescent moon. It looks more like a fingernail or a smile in the sky. The moon is lit up on the right-hand side. The moon is getting more and more illuminated from one night to the next. So the moon is growing, or we use the word waxing. The complete name for the moon we see in the evening sky for a few days after new moon is called a waxing crescent. Waxing is what it's doing, which is growing, and crescent is its shape. Slide number 8, please. Roughly every 7 days we have a major phase of the moon. So on March 21st at 9:41 a.m. Central Time was the moment of the first quarter moon. The name comes from the fact that the moon is just 1/4 of the way around in its orbit. There are no dollars involved, just quarters. Okay, slide number 9. In between first quarter phase and the full moon, we have what is called a gibbous moon. The word gibbous means hump. So the part of the moon that's facing the Earth is more than halfway lit up. The moon is still growing or waxing, so the total term we use at this point is a waxing gibbous moon. The moon is still lit up on the right-hand side. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 10, please. On March 28th at 1:50 p.m. Central Time, the moon was full. This is when the complete disk of the moon that's facing toward the Earth is illuminated, and the moon is in the opposite side of the sky from the sun. The moon rises when the sun sets, and the full moon sets when the sun rises. If the full moon happens to travel through the Earth's shadow at full moon phase, we call this a lunar eclipse. And again, we'll talk more about eclipses during another Skynet. In fact, we might do that at the end of May, because there is a total lunar eclipse then. Slide number 11, please. Now, for several days after full moon, we have another gibbous moon, but this time it is lit up on the left-hand side. It's getting smaller from one night to the next, so this shrinking is called a waning period. This period, moon phases, the complete name is called a waning gibbous. Slide number 12, please. On April the 4th at 5:04 a.m. Central Time, the moon was at its third quarter phase. It is called that because it is now 3/4 of the way around in its orbit. Sometimes it's called the last quarter because the moon is about ready to complete the last quarter of its orbit around the Earth. Between third quarter and full moon, the moon is again a crescent but continues to shrink in illumination from one day to the next. We call this waning crescent moon. It is still lit up on the left-hand side. And finally, tomorrow, that would be April 11th at 9:32 p.m. Central Time, the moon is back to its new phase, and we get the start of the cycle all over again. This takes about 29.5 days for the entire cycle, just about the length of a month. So where we get the word month from, it really should be a moon. Oh well. And now, why am I talking about moon phases so much during this Skynet? Well, last week during Skynet, on the eve before Easter, I talked about how we determine the date of Easter each year. And if you remember, that depends in part on the particular full moon. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 13, please. I already talked about this, but the next Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will be on Friday, April the 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Feature speaker Dr. Erin McDonald, and her topic will be physics of Star Trek. It's going to be really out of this world. Okay. For more detailed information about that, you can go to texasastro.org. Now, slide number 14, I want to welcome the students from Dallas College on Brookhaven campus that are listening and watching Skynet, probably on either YouTube or Facebook. Students, just a reminder, if you want to get stargazing class credit for this, then remember to fill out the form. There's 10 questions on it on eCampus by answering the questions and doing this within the next 48 hours. Otherwise, it just disappears. Now, do any of you out there in Radioland have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question. Tom, I think you're right. They're very quiet out there tonight. Slide number 15. So, as the moon waned during the first part of April, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. So until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5JHA, back to our net control, Tom, KE5ICX. Thank you.
Thank you, Jazz, and thank you for the presentation, but don't go too far. You know something's coming up very soon. Okay, this is KE5ICX and net control for tonight's Skynet. Okay, I see a check-in. That's Clay N50F. He's over on Echo Wave. That's unusual for him, but I will acknowledge you. I'll say you're in Dallas somewhere, maybe. You may be out of town. I don't know, but I do have you checked in. Anyone else like to check in? Please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. All right, hearing none. Next up is, go back here. I messed up on something. Hold on. All right, I found it. Kelly, K5KTX. Miss Kelly, it's time for space exploration and space history, and this is your part this week, so please go ahead from KE5ICX.
Tom, this is K5KTX. Good evening to everybody on the net. Well, Bill tried to steal my thunder a little bit earlier about the Ingenuity helicopter, but he apparently has not seen the latest news. NASA's Ingenuity Mars helicopter is just days away from making humanity's first attempt at powered, controlled flight of an aircraft on another planet. It was originally scheduled to fly tomorrow, April the 11th, but based on data from the Ingenuity Mars helicopter that arrived late last night, NASA has chosen to reschedule the Ingenuity Mars helicopter's first experimental flight to no earlier than April 14th. During a high-speed spin test of the rotors yesterday, the command sequence controlling the test ended early due to a watchdog timer expiration. This occurred as it was trying to transition the flight computer from pre-flight to flight mode. The helicopter is safe and healthy and communicated its full telemetry set to Earth. The watchdog timer oversees the command sequence and alerts the system to any potential issues. It helps the system stay safe by not proceeding if an issue is observed and worked as planned. The helicopter team is reviewing telemetry to diagnose and understand the issue. Following that, they will reschedule the full speed test. Flying in a controlled manner on Mars is far more difficult than flying on Earth. Even though gravity on Mars is about 1/3 that of Earth, the helicopter must fly with the assistance of an atmosphere whose pressure at the surface is only 1% that of Earth. If successful, engineers will gain invaluable in-flight data at Mars for comparison to the modeling, simulations, and tests performed back here on Earth. NASA also will gain its first hands-on experience operating a rotocraft remotely at Mars. These data sets will be invaluable for potential future Mars missions that could enlist next-generation helicopters to add an aerial dimension to their explorations. Flight will be autonomous with Ingenuity's guidance, navigation, and control systems doing the piloting. That's mostly because radio signals will take 15 minutes 27 seconds to bridge the 173 million mile gap between Mars and Earth. It's also because just about everything about the red planet is demanding. Events leading up to the first flight test begin when the Perseverance rover, which serves as communications base station for Ingenuity, receives that day's instructions from Earth. Those commands will have traveled from mission controllers at JPL through NASA's Deep Space Network to a receiving antenna aboard Perseverance. Parked at Van Zyl Overlook, some 215 feet away, the rover will transmit the commands to the helicopter about an hour later. Ingenuity will begin undergoing its myriad pre-flight tests. The helicopter will repeat the blade wiggle test it performed 3 sols prior. If the algorithms running the guidance, navigation, and control systems deem the test results acceptable, they will turn on the inertial measurement unit, an electronic device that measures a vehicle's orientation and rotation, and inclinometer, which measures slope. If everything checks out, the helicopter will again adjust the pitch of its rotor blades, configuring them so they don't produce lift during the early portion of the spin-up. The spin-up of the rotor blades will take about 12 seconds to go from 0 to 2,537 RPM, the optimal speed for the first flight. After a final systems check, the pitch of the rotor blades will be commanded to change yet again, this time so they can dig into those few molecules of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and argon available in the atmosphere near the Martian surface. Moments later, the first experimental flight test on another planet will begin. This is K5 KTX for Skynet. It should take about 6 seconds to climb to the maximum height for this first flight. When it reaches 10 feet, Ingenuity will go into a hover that should last, if all goes well, for about 30 seconds. While hovering, the helicopter's navigation camera and laser altimeter will feed information into the navigation computer to ensure Ingenuity remains not only level, but in the middle of its 33 by 33 foot airfield, a patch of Martian real estate chosen for its flatness and lack of obstructions. Then the Mars helicopter will descend and touch back down on the surface of the Jezero crater, sending back data to Earth via Perseverance to confirm the flight. Perseverance is expected to obtain imagery of the flight using its NavCam and MassCam-Z imagers. The helicopter will also document the flight from its perspective with a color image and several lower resolution black and white navigation pictures. So be sure to stay in touch on NASA.gov so you can get all the latest news on that, because that is a very exciting mission. Okay, in space history this week, starting with April the 5th in 1991, launched aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis' STS-37 mission, the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory was a space telescope that made observations from Earth orbit for the next 9 years. It featured 4 main telescopes in one spacecraft, covering X-rays and gamma rays, including various specialized sub-instruments and detectors. Named for Nobel Prize winner Arthur Holly Compton, The telescope was a part of NASA's Great Observatory series, along with the Hubble Space Telescope, Chandra X-ray Observatory, and Spitzer Space Telescope. It was the second to be launched following the Hubble Space Telescope. The mission ended on June the 4th, 2000. On April the 7th, 2001, the Mars Odyssey spacecraft launched. It entered orbit around Mars on October 24th, 2001, and has been working there ever since. The primary science mission of Odyssey was to map the distribution of a variety of chemicals and minerals on the Martian surface. Named in tribute to Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey, Mars Odyssey has proved an essential tool for Mars exploration and, since 2010, has held the record for the longest surviving active spacecraft at Mars. With the planned science mission of Odyssey completed in August 2004, the orbiter's continuing mission has included serving as a communication relay for other spacecraft, most notably the rovers on the Martian surface. Odyssey also helped analyze potential landing sites for the Mars Exploration Rover Spirit and Opportunity, NASA's Phoenix mission, and the Curiosity Mars Science Laboratory. April the 8th, back in 1964, Gemini 1, the first uncrewed test flight of the Gemini spacecraft, launched. The primary goals were to test the Titan II launch vehicle, the structural integrity of the Gemini spacecraft, and the compatibility between the launch vehicle and spacecraft. The spacecraft was tracked until it re-entered the atmosphere and disintegrated on the 64th orbital path over the southern Atlantic on April the 12th. Recovery of the Gemini spacecraft was not an objective of the mission. In fact, holes were drilled through its heat shield to assure that it did not survive re-entry into the atmosphere. On April the 9th, 1959, the anticipation had been building, and on this day in 1959, NASA publicly introduced the Mercury Astronaut team. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The rules for this briefing are very simple. In about 60 seconds, we will give you the announcement that you have all been waiting for, the names of the 7 volunteers who will become the Mercury Astronaut team. It is my pleasure to introduce you to you, and I consider it a very real honor, gentlemen, from your right, Malcolm S. Carpenter, Leroy G. Cooper, John H. Glenn, Jr., Virgil I. Grissom, Walter M. Schirra, Jr., Alan B. Shepard, Jr., and Donald K. Slayton are the nation's Mercury astronauts. These men were soon to become household names and genuine heroes. The Mercury flights proved that humans could live and work in space and paved the way for the Gemini and Apollo programs, as well as for all further human space flights. And finally this evening, just some astronaut birthdays from this past week. April the 5th, 1949 was the birth of Judith Resnick, who was part of STS-41B, and of course, as we know, she perished in the Challenger accident STS-51L. On April the 5th, 1950, Franklin Chang Diaz, who, let me get a good breath here, STS-61C, STS-34, STS-46, STS-60, STS-75, STS-91, STS-111. So lots of space shuttle missions. And then I think you almost have to be born on April the 9th in order to qualify to be an astronaut, because we have 3. April the 9th, 1950 was Kenneth Cockrell, who was part of Space Shuttle missions STS-56, 69, 80, 98, and also 111. And then April the 9th, 1963 was Timothy Copra, who was part of the STS-127 and 128, which was Expedition 20, and he was also on Expedition 46 and 47. And finally, we have April the 9th, 1976, Serena Onion Chancellor, who was part of the Expedition 56-57 crew, which was not that long ago. And that's all I've got for you this evening. This is K5 KTX. Back to you, Tom.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for your presentation this evening. This is KE5ICX at Net Control for Skynet. Yeah, I'll go ahead and ask. Any additional check-ins, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. All right, hearing none, we will continue. It's time for Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week. And Chaz, you're back. KF5JJ, you're the man. Go ahead from KE5I6.
Thank you, Tom. Slide number 16, please. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations as seen from Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week, and we've named it after her. Miss Carolyn's constellation are two of them of a week. This week is Pyxis, the compass, and Antelli, the air pump. Pyxis, the mariner's compass, was originally a part of the ancient constellation of Argo Navis, the ship of Jason and the Argonauts. The stars of Pyxis were part of the ship's mast, and in spite of this long-standing tradition, the 17th century French astronomer Nicolas Louis de Lasalle remapped these stars into a new constellation, Pyxis Nauticus, or the mariner's compass. Slide number 17, please. Now, I know all of you have been waiting for this, and those of you on Echolink have already shared this one with you, but here's the jokes of the week, and they're usually associated with the constellation of the week, and that's what this is. What do you call a crocodile with a map and a compass? A navigator. Okay, that's kind of funny. The letters on my compass suddenly came to life to tell me I'm going the wrong way. I couldn't believe the news, N-E-W-S, north, east, west, south. Okay, maybe that wasn't that funny. How do you tell which compasses are intelligent? Because they're all graduated. Why throw out a broken compass? Well, what's the point in keeping it? What's the most effective way to make it from Russia to Alaska? Use a compass and keep your bearings straight. You can see me later if you need me to explain this one. And my final one for the evening is my compass broke on a hiking trip. It went south very quickly. Okay. Slide number 18, please. Now, how do we find Pyxis? Let's begin with something familiar, Orion's belt. Draw a line from the left, which is to the east, from the belt until you run into the brightest star in the sky other than the sun, called Sirius. I'm not Sirius. Well, you already found that out. But the star is. Now continue to the left again, which is east, till you run into the faint stars of Pyxis. Slide number 19, please. Alpha Pyxis is a beta Cepheid type variable star and is also a double star. The magnitude of 8.5 companion is easy to see because it's about 107 arc seconds away from the primary, which is quite a big distance. The primary star appears white, while the companion star is an orange hue. That's kind of an interesting contrast. Beta Pyxis is also a double star, but it's a bit more challenging to split than Alpha. The companion star is fairly dim at 12.5 magnitude and is only 12.7 arc seconds from the primary. Beta looks a yellow-white through a telescope. And Zeta Pyxis is another double star. It is not much color difference between the two stars of spectral types because they're G4 and G0, which are both yellow stars of about the same spectral classification. The primary star is 5.5 magnitude and the companion is much dimmer at 10th magnitude. Slide number 20, please. NGC 2627 is an open star cluster. It's a bit difficult because it's not an obvious standout object on the eyepiece. It is easy to find this object with an 8-inch telescope, though. This cluster is situated in the Milky Way starfield, so it's not very conspicuous. The stars in the cluster are concentrated just enough when compared to the surrounding starfield that it stands out from the background. Slide number 21, please. NGC 2613 is an edge-on galaxy, which is surprisingly nice to see. It's not a knock-your-socks-off object because it's not very bright, but it is visible in a noticeably fuzzy streak in an 8-inch telescope. That could have only been an edge-on galaxy because it looks like a streak. Averted vision helps in seeing it. Averted vision means you don't look directly at the object, but off to the center. It's because the center of your eye is not as sensitive to fainter light as just away from the center of your eye. Kind of interesting. Averted vision. Slide number 22, please. NGC 2818 is an open cluster of stars which seemingly embedded planetary nebula similar to M46. We talked about that because it's in Puppis a couple of weeks ago. NGC 2818 is not a true member of the cluster in spite of how it appears. Accurate studies of proper motion and radial velocities of the stars in the cluster and the nebula show that their velocities are quite different. So the planetary nebula is a foreground object and not a true cluster member. The star cluster and the planetary nebula can be observed in an 8 or 10-inch telescope, or of course, a much larger telescope. And this is KF5 JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 23, please. Antilla, or the air pump, is a small, faint constellation located in the southern skies. Its name is an ancient Greek word for the pump, or the air pump, which it represents. Until it does not have a myth associated with it. Once again, it was created by Nicolas Louis Lassalle in the 18th century, along with 13 other constellations introduced by him to fill in the void in some faint regions in the southern sky. These constellations are mostly named after scientific instruments. There are no myths attached to them. Antilla is a small constellation, 62nd in size, occupying only 239 square degrees. Slide number 24, please. Now, how do we Antilla? Let's begin again with Orion's belt. Draw a line to the left, which is to the east. From the belt, you run into the brightest star other than the sun, called Sirius. Remember, I said I'm not serious, but that star is. Yeah, I already used that joke. Now continue to the left again, which is east, until you run into the faint stars of Pyxis. Now go a bit further to the left or to the east, and you will run into the faint stars of Antilla. Slide number 25. Theta Antillae is a binary star approximately 384 light years away. It consists of Theta Antilla A, a white A-type main sequence dwarf, and Theta Antilla B, a yellow-white F-type bright giant. Theta Antilla is a apparent magnitude of 4.78. Now there's also the next star we're going to talk about, Eta Antillae. It's also a binary star. It's only 106 light years in distance. The brighter component is a yellow-white F-type giant star. We talked about spectral classifications, I think, a while back, with an apparent magnitude of 5.2. The companion star is faint with a magnitude of 11.3. It's located about 31 arcseconds away. And finally, Delta Antillae is another double star approximately 481 light years away. The brighter component has an apparent magnitude of 5.57 and is classified as a blue-white B-type main sequence dwarf. The faint star is a visual companion 11 arcseconds away. Slide number 26, please. There really aren't many dark, deep sky objects that are bright, so Antilla Dwarf Galaxy is a dwarf toroidal galaxy located about 4.3 million light years from the Earth. It's a very faint object. You're not going to see it in a telescope. Well, Hubble will see it. It's an apparent magnitude of 16.2. The galaxy was not discovered until the year 1997, so it's relatively recent. Slide number 27, please. And the Intella cluster, it's a cluster of galaxies within the Hydra Centaurus supercluster, which in turn is the closest neighbor to the Virgo supercluster, which is the Milky Way is located in. The cluster is the third closest to our local group. Now, our local group is part of the Virgo cluster. And, well, anyway, Intella cluster contains about 234 galaxies. It's dominated by two massive elliptical galaxies, NGC 3258, NGC 3268. The Intella cluster is located about 32 million light years from the Earth. Slide number 28, please. There are more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Pyxis and Intella, the air pump and the compass. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 70 different observing program objects, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. And that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Pyxis the compass and Intella the air pump. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and the words on the deep sky objects that I've used, borrowed, and I always steal for tonight. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. It's a great resource if you want to go and take a look at more detailed information. Next week, we'll take a look at two more constellations, Sextans the Sextant and Hydra the Water Snake. And this is KF5, JHA, back to our net control, Tom, KE5ICX. This is KF5, JHA.
Thank you, Jazz. Most appreciated. Interesting. Very interesting tonight. Recently discovered galaxy in 1997. Very dim, but I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting that you mentioned that. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to skip space launches for this week. I don't think I have anything here that's really exciting. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you one thing. April 22nd, which really isn't this week, but Falcon 9 Crew of 2 will launch from Launch Complex 39A from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The Crew Dragon spacecraft on its second operational flight with astronauts on board to the International Space Station. That'll include NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Japanese astronaut Akihiko Hoshide, and European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquat will launch on the Crew Dragon spacecraft. The Crew Dragon will return to splashdown at sea when, we don't know exactly, but in any case, and they moved the Perseverance, which is the other Crew Dragon that's currently in space, over to a different docking hatch in preparation for this new Crew Dragon headed to the international, will be headed to the International Space Station. I'll give you more of them next week. So we'll go to Brenda, WB5OZL. What do you have for us for recent astronomical discoveries?
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled, More Than 5,000 Tons of Extraterrestrial Dust Fall to Earth Each Year. That's a lot. Every year, our planet encounters dust from comets and asteroids. These interplanetary dust particles pass through our atmosphere and give rise to shooting stars. Some of them reach the ground in the form of micrometeorites. An international program conducted for nearly 20 years by scientists from the CNRS, the Université Paris-Saclay, and the National Museum of Natural History, with the support of the French Polar Institute, has determined that 5,200 tons per year of these micrometeorites reach the ground. The study will be available in the journal Earth and Planetary Science Letters from April 15th. Micrometeorites have always fallen on our planet. These interplanetary dust particles from comets or asteroids are part of a few tenths to hundredths of a millimeter that have passed through the atmosphere and reached the Earth's surface. To collect and analyze these micrometeorites, 6 expeditions led by CNRS researcher Jean Dupré have taken place over the last 2 decades near the Franco-Italian Concordia station, Dome C, which is located 1,100 kilometers off the coast of Adelie Land in the heart of Antarctica. Dome C is an ideal collection spot due to the low accumulation rate of snow and the near absence of terrestrial dust. These expeditions have collected enough extraterrestrial particles ranging from 30 to 200 micrometers in size to measure their annual flux, which corresponds to the mass secreted on Earth per square meter per year. If these results are applied to the whole planet, the total annual flux of micrometeorites represents 5,200 tons per year. This is the main source of extraterrestrial matter on our planet, far ahead of larger objects such as meteorites, for which the flux is less than 10 tons per year. A comparison of the flux of micrometeorites with theoretical predictions confirms that most micrometeorites probably come from comets, 80%, and the rest from asteroids. This is valuable information to better understand the role played by these interplanetary dust particles in supplying water and carbonaceous molecules on the young Earth. Okay, back to net, WB50ZL.
All right, very good. Thanks very much for the report. Let's see here. Let's see. Boy, I don't have a lot on visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, but I'll go ahead and give them to you. I forgot that it was very short. I probably could have done more on the other section on launches, but hey, we all make mistakes. Let's see here. What do we got? The X-37, the secret U.S. Air Force space plane, has 2 passes that look interesting, and in fact, these are the only 2 really favorable passes of anything that we could see overhead this week. So we have on April 11th, 1.0 magnitude at 6:18 a.m. out of the southwest to reach its highest point at 6:21 at 59 degrees, and it'll fall at 6:25 at 10 degrees. So it's a fairly good pass. Then the other one is April 13th, 0.7 magnitude at 6 o'clock southwest, reaches highest point 6:01 at 61 degrees, and it falls at 6:04. 6:04. So that's it on that. I don't have anything else. No decent ISS passes, none of that. Sorry. So I should have figured that into my stuff tonight. Okay. Well, do we have any questions, astronomical or otherwise, that you'd like to bring to the net this evening? Well, let's do this. Before I do that, let me go ahead and stall for time and see if anybody else would like to join us this evening. Please come with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from. All right, hearing none, then let's see. Do we have any astronomical Q&As? Anybody have a question that they would like to bring to the net? We have experts. We've got Chaz. We got Kelly. They know a lot. We got Bill. Do you have an astronomical or space question? Please come now.
KF5JHA, not a question.
W5GUS with a question.
All right, KF5JHA, go ahead.
Thank you, Tom. On Wednesday night, I believe I got to see an ISS passage about 8:53 p.m., if I remember right. But something more fantastic happened, and I missed it. It was around 9 o'clock. There was this huge streak in the sky, visible from almost anywhere in North Texas. It was the next release of the SpaceX satellites, 60 of them, making a big streak in the sky because it just got released over in East Texas. And they spaced themselves out over several days period of time. But did anyone else see that? This is KF5JHA.
KF5WL.
Go ahead. Tell us what you saw.
I did get to see that strange anomaly in the sky, and it was kind of interesting how I got on with binoculars too, and it's kind of interesting how in a row they were, and how symmetrical they kind of were too. So, and but yeah, they were cruising across the sky, and I thought it was really cool. Something you don't see every day. Let's just put it in that category. KF5WL.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, this is KF5JHA, back to our net control, KE5ICX. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Chaz. And Gus, yes, W5GUS. How can I not remember that? It just went out of my head. Gus, you go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you, Tom. W5GUS here. Several months ago, maybe even a year ago, we were all excited about hearing about a new Texas State Park being prepared. It was west of Fort Worth, and it's supposed to be really a good dark sky park. I was wondering how, and I remember it was being groomed to be open to the public. It was not opened at that time. I was wondering if anyone had any updates on that park and the name of it, the Texas State Park that they're working on there west of Fort Worth. W5GUS.
KF5JHA.
Yeah, go ahead and contact us direct. It's permission granted.
Thank you, World Control. Hey, Gus, this is Chaz. Hey, I was just there yesterday out in that area. It's near Strawn, Texas, just a couple of miles outside of town. It's called Palo Pinto Mountain State Park. And they've received funding, but I could not see any evidence of any construction that has started yet. Of course, I think the COVID over the last year has prevented a lot of stuff from happening, and probably construction on that has been delayed because of that. But the funding for at least the initial construction has been approved by the state legislature. So I hope that answers your question of where it is and what the name of it is. Palo Pinto Mountain State Park near Strawn, Texas. That's halfway in between Fort Worth and Abilene, exactly halfway. KF5JHA.
Well, thanks, Chaz. That's exactly what I was looking for. I'm going to activate the Cedar Hill State Park this coming weekend for Texas State Parks on the Air. And so maybe, hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed. That would be a great one to activate maybe next year. And thanks again, Chaz. Back to you, Tom, W5GUS.
And an excellent question. Okay, do we have any final check-ins this evening before we close it down? Please come down with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from. All right, listen up, all you Brookhaven campus people. Here it is, what you're looking for. Tonight we had 27 check-ins, hams participating on the air. Thank you for all who participated this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at it, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net, astronomy in general, on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video feeds, video archives, and other useful resources by going to the club website, w5fc.org, at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:28 local time, returning the repeater to normal amateur use. We will be back in 10 minutes, to discuss Mr. Nobody from 2009. We'll also be looking for a net control. That should be interesting. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes. This is KE5ICX. Clear until then.
Hey, thanks for letting me know that Ingenuity had been delayed. Evidently that was just sent out earlier today, and I've been busy this afternoon, so I missed that new information. So really appreciate that. Got to wait for a few more days. I hope it works okay on April the 14th or later in 5BB.
Oh, and just in case any of you out there want to know why I was at Strawn, Texas yesterday, that's because of Mary's Cafe in Strawn that has the best chicken fried steak in the state. I'm sorry, should I do advertisement on the air? This is KF5JHA. Have a great night, 73.
Chaz, when you start to make proclamations about chicken fried steak or barbecue, you're going to get an awful lot of arguments.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Oh, it's not my declaration. That was made by the Texas Country Reporter. The best chicken fried steak in the state is at Mary's Cafe.
Yeah. How have you been doing, by the way?
I'm doing very well. Just my regular punny self.
Okay, so you're back to all systems go. Nothing medically slowing you down of any immediate nature.
No, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Of course, for those of you that aren't in the know, back in December I had COVID, and it took about 2 months to get my energy back and about that length of time to get my sense of smell and taste back. But no, I've been doing very well the last couple of months. Thanks you very much, Bill, for asking. KF5JHA.
Okay. Well, glad you're doing fine. It's now been a month exactly since I got my second Moderna COVID shot, so I'm feeling pretty good. I was feeling so good, I went to a restaurant for the first time since early March of last year and had a meal with a buddy of mine who also had his second COVID shot several weeks ago. So that felt so different. See you later, Chaz. I was too busy a day to watch the movie, so I'm going to bug out now. Glad you're doing fine. KF5JHA and 5BB is clear. And the reason I was late to the net here was my brother, his son was calling me from the hospital. My brother's been back in the hospital a couple of weeks. You know, he had the lung transplant, and they had some complications, and they had some complications from a procedure, so now he's back on a ventilator recovering. That poor guy's been on a ventilator so many times, I hate to see it again. But I was on a little FaceTime with him. I could talk, but he couldn't talk because he had the ventilator stuck down his throat. Anyway, see you later, Chaz. N5B, be clear.
Do I have anybody who would like to be net control for tonight's Afterglow movie net? Nobody at all? After I spent an hour and a half, you want me to talk for another hour and a half? Somebody out there? Anybody at Bueller? This is KE5I6.
Well, Tom, I wish I had any clue, but I'll listen. Cat5G8.
WB50ZL, I'll do it.
All right, thank you all. Hi, Melissa. Don't worry, we'll get you up to speed in no time. It's just what you need, another net. We'll get you in there. Don't worry. And thank you, Brenda. Yes, I'll let you do the net. I have notes. I actually did notes tonight because this thing needed notes for me to keep things. I even have diagrams. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. We're about 3 minutes away. KE5I6.
Yeah, I did Venn diagrams and they blew up in the middle.
Actually, I read a review there that Venn diagrams probably would be helpful. Simple Venn diagrams with complicating factors inside of the circles.
Does anyone need to use a repeater before we begin the Afterglow movie net?
Only to say that it's 10:39 and this net should start at 10:30. This is K5 A&E.
Talk to the boss. That's the time he set. Alright, this is WB50ZL, and this is the Afterglow movie net, which meets every week right after Skynet. And every week we pick some wonderful science fiction-ish movie to discuss. We watch it in between, and then we and then we talk about it. If you want to be on the list, contact Tom, KE5ICX, and he will send you an email or let you know what the next movie is for next week. Of course, we'll announce that at the end of this net as well. Basically, we do, so we have three parts to this. We talk about the plot, and then the characters and characterization, and then the special effects. So let me tell you a little bit about this movie first. Tom gave his rather fanciful version earlier. I won't do that again. But I'll give a little bit of the plot here from Wikipedia. In 2092, humanity has conquered mortality through endless renewal of cells. The world watches in fascination as the 118-year-old Nemo nobody, the last mortal on Earth, edges towards death. Curious to know of life before quasi-immortality, they interview Nemo. Dr. Feldheim, a psychiatrist, uses hypnosis to help Nemo recall some of his memories, while Nemo relates other memories to a journalist. As he is prodded, Nemo makes contradictory statements. He recounts his life at three primary points: age 9, when his parents divorced; age 15, when he fell in love; and age 34 as an adult. All three unfold into their many possible outcomes. Nemo explains that before birth, children remember everything that will happen in their lives. At the moment of conception, the angels of oblivion erase their memory. The angels forget about Nemo, allowing him to remember different possible futures for himself. Now, I thought, well, that's just really stupid. And some research, this comes from Jewish mythology. These angels touch it's called a philtrum, the little dent just above your lip. They touch that and erase your memory. So, yeah, I just thought this is something get pulled out of the air. At age 9, at a railway station, he is forced to choose as his mother leaves on a train while his father stays on the platform. In one case, he manages to board the train, while in another case, he stays with his father. So he's both on the train and off the train at the same time. So he's kind of what do you call that? The cat. Somebody help me. Schrodinger. Thank you, Michael. He was sort of a Schrodinger kid, being both off the train and on the train at the same time. My mind just blanked, but that is a long word. That is a big word. So these different narratives in his life, you know, it's this or that all at the same time. And the movie is a total jumble of timelines. He marries 3 different girls, and he has all these different jobs, and he dies a bunch of times. So it's really hard to keep track of it. Having said that, I love this movie. It is just fascinating. It's not like any other movie I've ever seen in my life. The main character is played by Jared Leto, a fabulous Oscar-winning actor who is just perfect in this, and he's a joy to watch. All right, rambling. I'll have a lot more to say later, but let's let other people have a chance and check in. Come now with your call sign, your name, and whether or not you saw the movie. Please come now.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville. Yep, I saw it.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Echo, this is Kane and Richardson. I saw 2 hours worth of movies, and I feel like I have another hour left to go. And I've got 2 guests here with me tonight, so they'll be sharing their opinions as well. Back to net.
Oh my. KE5ICX Tom and K5ANE Kane both saw the movie. I hope we get more people in that, or this might be a short night. Anybody on Echo Link out there?
This is Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike November, James, Oklahoma. Saw the part of the movie.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman. Yes, I saw the film.
Kilo Indio 5, Foxtrot Papa Sierra. I have not seen the movie, but this is my first time.
Cat 5 GRH. Didn't see the movie, but I'm listening.
KG5 EZW, just listening in.
Okay, I'm not really sure about some of these. KG5 PMN James, who saw part of the movie. KF5 PDS Billy, who saw the movie. KI5 FPS, didn't see the movie, but I didn't catch your name. Well, we'll come back to you later. And KF5GRH, Melissa, did not see the movie. But welcome to the net. And then the next one was, I think, KG5ACW, didn't get a name. I don't know if you saw the movie. Could you please fill in for me?
to Bill.
I'm sorry, Jay, didn't even recognize your voice, KG5BZW. Okay, but just because you guys didn't see the movie does not mean you can't pipe up and tell us what you think about science fiction and time travel and in weird movies. Anybody else want to check in? Alrighty then, well let's start at the top. We're going to talk about the plot. If, tell us if you understood it, and if you didn't, we'll explain it to you. KE5ICX Tom, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Brenda. I actually took notes. I had to go back and I read a bunch of reviews because there are so many different story threads throughout it that you lose a little bit of track. Now, does that mean it's a tough movie to follow? Yes and no. First off, let me explain something. The decision points, basically about this film, what they're trying to do is they're talking about decision points in our lives, things that happen. What if I did this or I did that, and how that would play out. And we can only live, and it's mentioned in one of the versions of Nemo as the science guy on TV. He says time zero causes everything to go in one direction. And that's, of course, to direct us, too, as the audience, to try and explain that time zero. Why can't we reverse time? Well, in his case, he says he can. And we're not entirely sure one way or the other if he does or not. But he has decision points. One of them when he's 9, another one when he's 15, he's a teenager, again when he's adult at 34, and then the strange, who knows what's going on at the age of 118. So these are pivotal points, and we all have pivotal points in our lives, and that's what they try and do, is explain that. And at age 9, the thing is that he's running after a train. He finds out that mom's cheating, and he ends up deciding as the train is leaving with his mother on board, does he want to live with his father or does he want to live with his mother? And that's a decision point for him, and that's one of the diverting points in the storyline. In one case, he remains with his father and things happen, and he meets different people, and then the other, he manages to get on the train and he stays with his mother and heads to Montreal. So that's one part. That's just the beginning of the diversions, and then life with his father. If he stays with his father, he ends up, his father becomes invalid, and he's reduced. He doesn't have an opportunity to really get out and do anything except write his science fiction, which also causes a diversion in all of that, and the people that he meets. There are 3 girls or women in his life, depending on which time you talk about this, and they are, who are they? That would be Jean, or Jeannie, Elise, and Anna. And he meets them all in different ways in the different timelines. Let's see. Yeah, I know. I really need a Venn diagram because I'm reading my notes and trying to figure out where this all goes. So, in the first one, when he stays with his mother, they go to Montreal, and they spend time with, who is it? Harry. Harry is who she ends up living with, I guess. And meets with, this is tough to follow. Anna. Is it Anna? Anna. And in the process, then he falls in love with her, and it turns out that this is not going to work out. Harry ends up breaking up with his mom, and he takes Anna with him, and so they don't get to meet anymore. And they pledge to meet at the Lighthouse in New York someday, and they would get back together. And in one of the storylines, it doesn't happen. In the final storyline, it does. In an alternate version, Anna and Nemo get together, and they married with children, and they make. And this is where Nemo makes the educational videos and becomes somewhat of a personality. And this is where you get the explanation of what's going on as far as stories. So he plays kind of a Neil deGrasse Tyson, or a more appropriate Brian Greene character, explaining multiverses and string theory and the butterfly effect and chaos theory and all of that. So that helps to shorthand for the audience what's going on in that particular characterization. Let's see. Yeah, things are diverting quickly. Oh my goodness, I'm still trying to read my notes. At 34, you should see my notes. I mean, maybe you shouldn't because it's getting tough. At 34, you know, he moves on. His life. Maybe I better summarize because I'm having trouble with this one too. Is when you're older, then you regret or regress back to your earlier days. One of the things in the story, too, is that he's distilled everything down to 9 when he was 9, and everything that happens after that, and the things that occur are based on that one decision about being on the train. And in some cases, these things work out really well for him. And in other cases, not so much. But in the end, the whole thing really comes down to life is a bunch of choices. And the only time it really gets bad is when decisions are made, he loses girlfriends, there's divorces and that, and he finally decides, I'm not doing that anymore. And he decides he's just going to use a simple coin and a flip of a coin to do things, and he just arbitrarily goes off and decides in one case when he gets off an airplane he's going to go and pretend to be this other person, pick up the luggage, or sees the name and says, we're here to pick you up, takes him to the hotel. He flips a coin to decide whether he was going to do this or not, and then he ends up impersonating somebody else, and then he gets killed. I mean, that's crazy. The whole thing, the arbitrary part is the part that's probably the worst for the whole thing. If you're just going to just do it unthinking, that's probably how it's all going to end. Now, there is a curiosity about him, too. At 118, when he is reminiscing on this story, he is spending time trying to express all these different contradictory things that are happening in his life, or had happened in his life, and he doesn't know how he got to 118. We know him only at 9, 15, and 34, and then suddenly we flash forward to 118, and he's a curiosity amongst the people on Earth as to a mortal man is going to die, and he's telling his story before he leaves. Everybody else is quasi-immortal, so he's a curiosity to everyone else. And they're hanging on his every word. He goes through a regression with hypnosis, I think, with the guy that looks like a Maori, with the tattoos and that. And when he goes into the regression, everything is plaid, which is rather interesting, suggesting that what we're about to see is probably not true or even close. But then, as the story starts to unfold and all these different cases start to unfold, then you begin to see him more as a more authentic storyline. Each of these different, some of them contradictory. In some cases he lives, in other cases he doesn't. He makes different decisions about who he ends up marrying and who he does not marry, and he fixes it. It's sort of like, let me reset. It's sort of like Groundhog Day in that way, but that follows a single timeline over and over and over again, and you refine it. In this case, he goes back and he'll change them some, but at some point, if that timeline ends with his death, which it does happen from time to time, you got to ask yourself, well, how does that play out in the timelines? But, okay, I have a nosebleed now. I'm going to stop for the moment because I'm looking at my notes and they're indecipherable. I'll work on this and I'll be back. Okay, E5I6.
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. Next, K5ANE Kane. What do you think about the plot?
Well, you know, if KE5ICX has a nosebleed just from reading his notes, I can only imagine what our minds would be like if we're actually looking at the entire plot the writers originally wrote for this movie and left on the chopping floor. We set out a few hours ago to go launch the theatrical release, and you know, I was thinking, oh, it's like 8 something. Like, yeah, we'll be able to get this thing done before the Afterglow Movie Net. And what do you know? Here we are. We're only like, I don't know, 2/3 through the movie, the theatrical release, not the director's cut, the extended release. And yeah, it's dang, this is quite a movie to watch. Yeah, it's quite ambitious in what it's trying to do, and I have to say, while I don't exactly know everything that's going on in this plot, it's quite a captivating story. It's interesting, and I don't know. I'm a huge fan of things like string theory and talking about, you know, every single decision point, things splitting off, and the idea of why do we have to live in this understanding of time being unidimensional and straightforward, and why is this, you know, why can't we think of time, you know, in higher dimensions and think of it not just necessarily as a straight vector, but necessarily as a plane of possible, you know, dimensions. And it's kind of interesting how they play into this concept and do these kinds of topics. And so far, I have to say I have not finished this movie yet, but so far it seems like a really interesting idea. Now I've got a few other guests here with me tonight that would also like to share their ideas. Once again, this is K5ANE. This isn't quite back to net, but handing off to another person that might be interested in amateur radio here in the future. Let me hand out the mic. One second.
This is Brady, and what I thought about the movie was really nice because I never saw a movie like this, but I like that it shows 2 different points of a movie, and then it just shows the pros and cons of each. And that's all I gotta say, so I'm going out.
This is K5ANE, back to net.
Hey, WB5OZL, thank you. KG5PMN, James, you saw part of it. What did you think?
This is KG5. Me and James up here in Oklahoma. Just watching the movie was totally confusing to me because I couldn't follow anything on it. There was too many twists and turns and everything else. But after hearing the discussion over the synopsis and everything about the plot, it makes a little bit more sense now. Just couldn't keep track of it. some of these movies I need to sit down and read Wikipedia or whoever's notes on the movies before I watch it, and I might understand some of them a little bit better. With the twists and turns and the what happens if you do this, I've always kind of wondered sometimes that sit there and walk out of the house and have to turn around and go back in and get something and come find out there was a wreck on the freeway, and where would I have been if I hadn't lost 5 minutes going back in and getting that thing? Where would I have been in the middle of the freeway at that time? I always kind of wondered about that every once in a while. Back to the net, KG5PM in.
That is so true. The little choices we make. In August 1966, the UT Tower Sniper, I watched it from the front porch of the building. If I hadn't spoken to a friend up in the library, that had been me. And virtually everybody I knew had a story about why they happened to be somewhere else that day. They normally went through campus, but they got a ride or something else happened. And I think our lives are like that, especially a dramatic event like that. Just some little delay or change of plans, and your future is altered. So it's fascinating to think about. All right, Billy, KF5PDS, your thoughts?
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, I think this is a strange and beautiful film. It is just visually stunning and thought-provokingly stunning. There's so many layers and levels. I think you could probably watch this movie a dozen times and still find new things to marvel at and drill down into fine details. So this is definitely a movie I am wanting to watch again and again. To try to pick out, fine details. It's like, you watch it and you get the broad strokes, and then you start to pick up fine details here and there, and this movie would take a lot of viewings to fully understand, like Primer, which I love. I'm with Kane on that. I love movies like this that explore different, structures of time and delivery of time. This movie, as I was watching it, I was thinking this is like Sliding Doors meets Slaughterhouse-5. It's like we're jumping through time, but it's not willy-nilly. It's not random. We're doing it in a little bit more structured way than Slaughterhouse-5. In Slaughterhouse-5, Billy Pilgrim was like thoroughly unstuck in time and was just randomly jumping like a record skipping through life. But this was more structured than that. And I love if you've never seen Sliding Doors, I highly encourage you, if you like this kind of film, to watch Sliding Doors. It picks a specific point, and then you watch two alternate timelines unfold in parallel to each other and until they collapse. And this follows the same kind of thing. I love the quantum mechanic aspect of this film, that, when Nemo, as the quantum physicist, is describing the universe consisting of, 9 dimensions, like the string theory approach, as Tom mentioned, Brian Greene, this was perfectly in line with that, and 9 was kind of a magic number. It's like we went back to Nemo at age 9. Nemo talks about the universe being consisting of 9 dimensions, but we only exist in 3 spatial and 1 temporal moving forward. And I got the idea that, because he got passed over by the angels, maybe he had access to all 9 and could manipulate time and space the way others can't. And that's why he could explore all these different avenues at once. And it seems contradictory because that, quantum mechanics, it seems like logic kind of flies out the window. Things that happen on the macro scale can't happen the same way they happen on the micro, scale. In the quantum level, things can happen that seem illogical. And so he could experience all these different states at once. And it seems contradictory to the journalist who is trapped in the 3 spatial and one temporal. It doesn't make sense to him, but to Nemo it makes perfect sense that he's able to experience all these things. As he said, until you make a decision, they all exist at the same time, which plays into, as you mentioned, Brenda, the Schrodinger aspect. And I was thinking, this must be what life in Schrodinger's box must be like. It's all things existing all at once until you make an observation, make a decision, and then it collapses down into a state that it becomes locked. It's no longer entangled. You know, the whole idea of quantum entanglement really, I really enjoy thinking about those things, and this movie really plays to that strength. And I just love the way we can see these alternate times, and it's like, did they exist? Didn't they exist? Were they dreams? Which was real? Which was not real? And trying to suss that out throughout the whole film, it kept you guessing. And I thought that was just tremendously brilliant on the part of the writers, you know, to keep you moving along through all of this, wondering, you know, what was real and what was not. It was just thoroughly fascinating. And I think that the whole idea of him, like, arriving at 2092, and that's when the world stopped expanding and started to go back, you know, maybe that's another reason why he could experience the world the way he did, because that was happening at the same time. So I just found that thoroughly fascinating. And I loved the little nuggets. One of the little nuggets I picked up on was when Anna gave him the phone number. It was the Fibonacci sequence with an extra 1 thrown in to make it look like a phone number. So if you go look at that, you know, you have 123581 and then 1321. Well, there's Fibonacci. I just love that little nugget that they threw in there. I thought that was just really nice. So anyway, I love the film. I love the fact that the plot moves in a non-linear way. The Argyle, I thought, was a perfect touch to make it look like a multi-dimensional plane, kind of playing into that multiverse aspect. And it really just held your attention through the whole film. I did not feel at any time that it lagged. I never lost interest in it, and it just held me to the very end. So I really love this film. So thanks to whoever recommended this one. This was a brilliant choice. So with that, I'll turn it back to you. This is KFI PDS, back to net.
Thank you, Billy. I get blamed if nobody likes it, but they're probably not going to. I didn't recommend it. It was not me, but I probably won't get credit. I love your comments about numbers. It's interesting. Ancient people, you know, even not that long ago, people found great significance in numbers. It's all through the Bible. Isaac Newton added indigo to the spectrum because he thought there had to be 7 colors, because 7 was a significant number. And I find that a very alien concept, and I don't know how many people today find significance in numbers, but the story about the Fibonacci series, that's really funny. Very fascinating. All right, KR5 FPS, I never got your name and you didn't see the movie, but you can say something if you like. Okay, KI5 GRH, Melissa. You didn't see the movie, but you want to talk about parallel universes?
Well, hello, KI5GRH. What a fascinating, interesting description of whatever this movie is. I'm really curious now after hearing your descriptions of it. I really like the idea of all the quantum stuff that you were talking about, time and decision points in life. And, the older you get, the more you think about that. I don't know. I'm real curious about this movie now, and I just love your analysis of it. And I don't know how all of you can think so straight this late at night. I can hardly even speak at this time of night. But anyway, I'm having fun listening tonight. I'm sitting in front of a fire in the backyard. Fire pit. KF5GRH.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Okay, it's my turn, although I've talked an awful lot already, but I'll say it is a fascinating idea of what ifs. You know, what if I had gone to that college instead or married that other person instead? And you can really play out how that would have happened. But in this guy's case, in Nemo's case, he got to experience it all. But as a kid, to me, it's almost metaphorical. He's kind of like one of the leaves in this thing blowing around. Life just kind of pitches him about, and he reacts. It doesn't seem like he's really got purpose or mission, except in a couple places he decided he wanted a pool and a wife and kids, but none of that made him happy. He doesn't seem to know what he wants other than these women, and I find that a little odd. Most 16-year-olds would be glad to tell you what kind of car they want or where they're going to go to school or all kinds of plans for the future, and he just didn't seem to have a lot of future plans. I'm sure this was done on purpose to develop this character, but I just found that a bit unusual. They never explained to us why he didn't get whatever the youth thing was. Had to do with telomeres, and they never really explained it. But how come the doctors didn't treat him the same way the other people were treated, so he would also have immortality? Personally, I think immortality would not be that good of an idea. It's like that Meatloaf song goes, now I'm praying for the end of time so I don't have to spend it with you. You know, unless you're in a situation, the idea of living forever is not that appealing. So, anyway, it's a fascinating story. I'd like to read it again, and if you're having trouble with it, go to Wikipedia and read through that several times. It explains it pretty well, such as it is. Okay, any more check-ins?
Kilo Golf 5 Zulu India X-Ray. Joe and Wiley.
Kilo Golf 5 Zulu India X-Ray. Joe, did you see the movie? Okay, we can circle back if we need to. All right, let's talk about the characters. KE5ICX. Tom, go ahead.
Well, obviously the Nemo character is, of course, our central character and the one who really comes out extremely well in all this. Leto, I guess, Jared Leto, who plays the 35-year-old and then the 118-year-old individual in the film, does a wonderful job. I think one of the really cool things, and maybe this is an acting thing, I don't know, but it does fall into characterization, is that he plays, and apparently, I've only seen him in one of the actor actually in one other thing, and that was Blade Runner 2048, and his character was a real standout example, and I think Leto was actually, if I read the notes correctly, was picked because of his ability to play layered performances. When you're doing something like this, where you're playing multiple examples of yourself, and the motivations may be slightly different from one instance that you're having, because you're doing multiple timelines, and then being able to hold it all together. That's an incredible thing to do. I mean, I have a problem just keeping up with the plot myself, let alone an individual has to play this out and emote it in such a way that it makes sense and it's coherent. Because in one scene you can be in angst over something that's happening, and then in the next scene you're joyful. But you're having a different experience. There are different people that you're interacting with, and you've got to figure out how the heck to hold that all together and make it play correctly as an actor and as the character himself. I thought too that the very young, the 15-year-old, the two actors that played the Nemo characters were quite good. They had. Were impressionable and even somewhat disinterested at times, depending on which things were going on. I thought that was really great. The rest of the actors, however, or I shouldn't say, but characterizations, were a little bit more cardboard. I think that was required because we're focusing on Nemo. I think that's probably the biggest thing to take away from that. So since he's experiencing everything going on, then his emotions and how he reacts to everything is the most important part of the story, and of course is what's brought out through the whole thing. Everyone is given plenty of time. Obviously this is a very long movie, but I think it almost has to be. The characterizations as the stories play out at a rather relatively slow pace. I was thinking about it, and this is kind of a crude way to look at it, but it's kind of how my crude mind thinks. It's like a television show where you do a crossover with another television show, and now instead of having your 2 or 3 principal characters or a cast of 7 that alternate stories every week, in this case you end up with, in the crossover, you end up with 4 principal characters and up to 14 familiar recurring people in the thing. It just gets out of control. When you're doing multiple timelines like this, you have to have enough time to actually express what's going on in each scene, and that takes time, and then you have to re-express it later on, and maybe at a different age, and then again in the alternate timeline. It just gets really, really crazy, and it takes a long time to tell the story. However, I think that they did a fairly good job with that. Unlike Primer, but while that was a wonderful movie and I enjoyed it, I didn't understand it at all. This one is probably just outside of my understanding anyway, too, but this one at least I could follow a little better. So, at the end, I think that one of the great things was, and this is the plot point as well, but Nemo decides that, Billy did the best job explaining it, is that making no decision at all, it means that all possibilities are open. And that's one of the greatest lines in the entire movie. Is that, it's not predetermined, and since there was the big crunch and they're going back in time, then he never existed either, which is kind of a strange thing, although at the very end he walks away with his mother and his father and Ellen, I do believe, his first love. So that was kind of cool in a way, and I think one of the greatest things that comes out of it with the characterization too is he's happy. He's happy at the very end. He's joyful, gleeful over everything that's happened, and has no regrets when it's ultimately all said and done. I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe the thing about this movie is that it's more of an emotional thing. It's about being in the moment and your feelings through it, and I think that that's expressed quite well. Can I give you more? Probably not. But there you have it. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you. Jane, K5ANE, what did you think about the characters?
Well, I gotta say, starting off, if this is only the second movie you've seen with Jared Leto, then I gotta say you're missing out, because, I mean, you haven't seen American Psycho, you haven't seen Lord of War, you haven't seen Panic Room, you haven't seen Requiem for a Dream. Lots of awesome movies that at least have them somewhere in the movie, and especially Requiem for the Dream. Requiem for a Dream. Incredible movie. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it already. Definitely shows that Jared Leto is not just a pretty voice, and actually a pretty decent actor. Continuing on, yeah, this, man, I definitely feel you on the idea that, like, a lot of the additional actors, or actors and actresses, while they're important characters in their own right in many ways, they do kind of fall flat. It's really trying to tell a tale of a single person and all the possibilities of that person's life. And so, you know, we have one character that's impossibly fleshed out, and yet we have this multitude of other characters, other potential characters. It's really kind of an interesting movie. That it's very different in that way as far as describing all the people around them, because they're both very real and very not real at the exact same time. You really wonder, are these really characters with their own abilities and their own rights, or are they just figments of Mr. Nobody's imagination as he's 100 and something years old? And once again, we haven't seen this movie to completion, so I don't exactly know the ending of this, but yeah, it's really interesting, and it really kind of brings in one of the main ideas of, like, talking about, this is a sci-fi in many ways, and, like, when talking about time travel and things like that, who's really in control? Especially when you're talking about somebody that, has this ability to arbitrarily change decisions in the past. Are those other people really other people, or are they just these other non-player characters hitching a ride on the show of Mr. Nobody? And it's really weird then thinking about these other people's experiences as Mr. Nobody exists and goes through time. It's really strange. And, yeah, let me see if any of my additional guests want to add anything onto this. 1 second, K580. Well, the consensus in the room is I'm confused. So, back to net. This is K5ANE.
Thank you. This is WB50ZL. James, KG5PMN. What did you think?
KG5PMN. I guess if I went back to watch it again and with the knowledge that there were, I'm thinking at least 6 separate different characters for him, playing the different parts with the different family members and different timelines and everything, and to keep that all straight and separated. It might be a little more interesting. Just the initial watching for me, the character I kind of want to say is like hitting the one end of the sine wave. You're just kind of bouncing off the top, and you're can't really keep track of who's doing what. And every time I turn around and look up, he was in a bed with a different woman and doing something with a different woman, it seemed like, and it's kind of hard to keep track of who was doing what and where for me with the initial watching of it. Send it back to the net, KG5PMN.
KF5PDS, Billy.
I agree. folks need to see more movies with Jared Leto. He is really extremely good at this type of acting, putting into these kind of roles with the complex emotions. I agree with Kane. Seeing him in American Psycho and Requiem for a Dream, those are both really good movies, both and also disturbing in their own rights, but very good movies nonetheless. And then seeing him in this film too was really amazing. I thought he did an excellent job of bringing this character to life in different lives. So at different stages of life and different, thought processes going on. And as Tom mentioned, that this would be extremely difficult. It's, enough to be viewing it, but to have acted through that, to present that to the viewer, that, brings so many, complex challenges, how he pulled this off, it's like, I don't know, I'm not an actor, but it's part of the craft, and his innate talent that he brings to the craft of acting. So I thought, Nemo, nobody. I've looked up, I think Nemo was Latin for nobody, so it's almost like he's named Nobody. And I was thinking, they refer to his mother and father as the mommy and the daddy. They don't ever really give them names, but that was interesting to leave them nameless, as part of the backdrop of his life. I felt sorry for the dad that he became disabled and seemed to be losing his mind, losing his memory, because he at one point, says, you look like my son. He's like, Dad, I am your son. And he's like, no, you're not tall enough, or something like that. And it just, my heart went out to him, because as caring for an aging parent, this is something that is every child's worst nightmare, to see their parent go down that road. And so I could feel for him when he was caring for his dad, and then having to go home and live the life he was living with his mother. So I saw, the juxtaposition of the different lives, and, how you can hold that together. It's not easy. And I just thought it was very interesting, how they kept ping-ponging back to the different points in his life to show just how, different his life was. It's just really fascinating. I'll have some things to say about music later, but that really played into the characterization as well, to help bring out the emotions that all the actors were feeling. Think of anything else to say. The mother's character was very interesting and strange, because, it's like he wanted to be with her, but, she didn't exactly make his life easy or comforting. And, so he was, I think the, angst-ridden teen was played very well at that age, but he was especially frustrated because he could see the future, and his mother didn't believe him. She was like, it's like you think you can see the future. He's like, but I can. And he describes it in detail. The man that she married, his stepfather, described in detail his, end of his life, and it was, very, disturbing. She thought he was doing it just deliberately, making things up to destroy the relationship, but he was telling the truth. And I thought it was funny when he faked his suicide with the ketchup with the knife, like he cut his throat, and she just walks past him and ignores him. That reminds me of Harold and Maude, when Harold would do all of his different, staged, quote-unquote, suicide attempts, and his mother, she knew he was just faking, and she just gave them no attention, because she knew that was just the way he acted. And so I think they showed the one instance of that, but it made me wonder if he did that multiple times, if he was actually envisioning his own death, how can I escape this existence, and was trying to do some role-playing as a cry for help. I didn't know how seriously that was to be taken, but I thought that one scene was a delicious nod to Harold and Maude, which is one of my all-time favorite films. And the other characters, as all the other folks said, I think Kane said, they just seem to be a backdrop. We're looking at his life in extremely excruciating detail, and the other people are just, part of the landscape, so we don't delve too much into their psyches, although except for the one wife who was extremely depressed. I thought they played that very accurately, because she was just 1 minute, happy and trying to be happy and trying to put a brave face and be, there for her daughter to have a fun party, and then inside, she was just, crushed and just really in inner turmoil all the time, and it was really, that was a painful thing to see. So I thought her character, we got to see more into her, and of course the Anna character, the love of his life. We learned more about her, but the June wife, we really don't see any background about her. She's probably the least developed character in the film. So it was interesting what they chose to reveal about the different characters and what they chose to remain hidden. And so that, for that reason, it makes me want to go back and watch to see if there's any details to pick out from those folks. So I can't think of anything else to add, so I'll return it to you. This is KF5TDS, back to Matt.
Okay, KI5FPS, did you ever come back to us? Okay, KI5GRH, Melissa, do you have anything to add?
I am just really enjoying y'all talking about it. I'm going to have to look this up. It sounds extremely interesting. Now I'm just sitting here enjoying the fire and listening to y'all talk about this interesting movie. KI5GRH, real fun.
Okay, well, KG5ZIX, Joe, are you with us? Okay, it's my turn. There are so many common themes throughout this movie, and you talk about him having choices, but this is a person that didn't have a lot of choices. Things happened to him, and traumatic things. His parents separating, and he's a pawn, and he can't find the woman he loves, and caring for his dad, and caring for his manic depressive wife. And a lot happens to him that he just can't really control or get out of. And you think about free will and predetermination and making choices, and you're not really sure what's going on here. Which is it? And how could it be otherwise? The other characters in the movie, while they were adequate, they were, to me, just props. They were okay actors, but they didn't shine like he did, nor were they supposed to. And I think that helped carry the story along, that they kind of didn't get in the way of his story, that gave him a chance to shine. He is such an amazing actor. He won an Oscar for playing a trans with HIV in the Dallas Buyers Club. I've seen clips. I haven't seen it. I'm going to look it up and watch it, although I'm sure it's probably going to be a hard watch. He's the kind of actor, well, in this movie they said he stayed in character throughout the whole filming, and he does that a lot. I think in the Dallas Buyers Club he did that too, just stayed in character the whole time. He's the kind of actor that will lose 60 pounds or gain 60 pounds for a part, and research things very, very thoroughly, and stay in character and, you know, really get buried in the part. So he's amazing, and he's a musician as well. He has a band. So he's incredibly talented. So, you know, they really wanted him to do this movie, and there's a lot of movies where they just kind of won't do it without him because he's such a important part of the movie. Other characters. I think that's all I have to say about characterization. So let's move on. Any new check-ins? All right, well, let's talk about special effects. I don't know how much content there is here, but we'll talk about it. KE5ICX. Tom.
Hi, thank you, Brenda. And how did I guess that's what you were going to talk about next? Because, well, it is. I'm actually watching right now, thanks to Daily Motion has a thing on this, showing the special effects and how they built everything up. And it is well done. I mean, there is the cinematography, and then there's the special effects that go into it. I think all of the digital parts were done in, Montreal? They were done in Canada, I know that for a fact. And that's quite masterful. Now, don't forget, this is, 2008, 2009, when the film was released, so you go back another, year or two, and I'm watching how they're building all this stuff up and creating, you know, cityscapes. It's quite well done. So that part, I think, is quite amazing, and that's become, I guess, sort of a thing that you can do this, but and the special effects keep getting better and better in films. But even still, I think that you've got to make it look believable. And in some ways, when you see films today, especially with the superhero stuff, nothing's believable anymore. In this case, I think that it really does look really great. And if it's the last part of the 21st century, for example, I can see it being like this. I mean, more of what we have today and beyond, and sort of the Blade Runner-esque look to it and all of that. And then it's beautifully colored and made to work in a coherent way, which I think is important. If it looks stupid or is exaggerated, which is easy to do, and we know this with all science fiction films, it's very easy to exaggerate something or to extrapolate so far into the future, into an idea of what the future will be, or even today, that it becomes artificial. It doesn't have any of the real aspects to it that it needs to have. Now, that being said, there's the other side of that, too. Which is, of course, that part of this is that you do want to make it cartoonish, but you're only doing that through certain segments. And that's where the manipulation, I think, comes in, and they do a very good job of it. You create a world, and then you can create a crazy world as well, and then that further confuses. But it's done on purpose. It's not an accidental thing. It's not like, let's just keep adding things into the film until it becomes really cool and people will love it, because this isn't that kind of film. It takes a long time to tell the story. It takes a long time to establish the scenes, and it takes even longer to be able to make those effects and the feelings for the film work. I'm looking at it right now, and all of the elements they put together. Scenes that you think actually are natural are digitally created, even in the more normal scenes. It's really quite interesting. Go to Breakdowns Nobody by Rodeo FX on Daily Motion, and you'll find it. It's really astounding. Back to Nat, KE5ICX.
Okay, K5ANE, Kane.
this is one of those sci-fi movies that I love because, you know, it's a sci-fi movie that talks about very sci-fi kinds of topics. I mean, we're talking string theory, time travel, you know, multiple potential, you know, universes and things like that. And yet, the majority of this movie, it doesn't really require any, like, CGI or anything like that. I mean, yeah, there's this whole they're going to Mars kind of thing going on there, and yeah, there's some CGI with that, and okay. But for the most part, it is, you know, you can almost write that out of this movie, and this movie would still hold a lot of weight, and it's still just, you know, a normal person's life, and the effects of things like that going on with that. And, gosh, I gotta say, I love sci-fi that doesn't have to resort to special effects to really make you think about what all's going on. Very interesting. One sec, we'll see if we got any other comments here. All right, that's the general consensus over here. I'll pass it back to Net Control. This is K5A&E.
Sorry, K25PMN, James.
KG5PMN. I like the music and throughout the movie. Had to actually look up Mr. Sandman to see who it was done by, and found out when it was done. And actually, the original group, I believe, had the song in there, even though it seemed a little slower than what I remembered the original song was. And then the opening song, I think, was one of my favorites too. And I can't remember what it is offhand. But, overall, the music was pretty good with the movie. Back to the net, KG5PMN.
I can't ever hear Mr. Sandman without thinking of Back to the Future, although that's, I mean, I remember it from when I was a child. It was hit song then. All right, KF5PDS, Billy.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Mr. Sandman. I thought it was cool that they showed, like, in the way the special effects, I'll talk about that first. The space scenes were just visually stunning. The Mars scene was, I thought that was just beautifully done. I loved the spaceship, the hibernation ship. I thought that was really interesting, showing everybody in their little compartments, being tended to by different machines, you know, while they were in their stasis before they arrived at Mars, and just seeing the planet through the window of the ship was just gorgeous. And I thought it was interesting seeing as they were riding. It looked like I was wondering, you know, how were they breathing? But it seemed like they were in an enclosure because you could see like a net thing above them. And so I thought, okay, maybe they're enclosed in some kind of structure. And, you know, seeing like different billboards and things by the side of the roads, you know, on the Martian landscape. I thought that was really a humorous touch. And I thought the end scene when the planets were moving, you know, and all of a sudden they just stopped and then they started to move backwards. I thought that was beautifully done. All the different planets, the CGI was just amazing. So I thought that was visually stunning. I'd have to go back and watch more to see what other special effects. I like the use of models, you know, when they were showing certain things happening, they showed it in a model, and then they showed it happening in real life, you know, quote-unquote real life, you know, if it was an alternate timeline or whatever. But I thought that was interesting use of models, and I thought just great effect with slow motion and, you know, great emotional effect. I thought that was really well played. The music, yeah, I love Mr. Sandman. It's a great song. I think at some point in the choir we did an ensemble, you know, all-girls ensemble where we had to sing that. And it was fun to sing as well as to listen to. And I thought it was interesting as they moved through time with the different versions of the song, and there was even kind of a punk version, which I thought was kind of cool. And I love the use of 99 Luftballons, the Nena song. I thought it was interesting that they included the German version rather than the American version, the English version. And I have that album on vinyl that I bought in the 80s, because that was perfect 80s touch to the film. So I loved how they did the music as he moves through different phases of life. I think that's always a great touch when people use music to move you, propel you forward through a film, to really capture the times. And the piano music was beautiful. My favorite was when he was running to the mother to try to catch her on the train. The piano music is a song called Gymnopédie by Eric Satie, and that is one of my favorite piano pieces. One day I hope to be able to play that. That was, when I heard that, it's just to me instantly recognizable and poignant, and was perfectly placed in the film. So that was a highlight moment for me. It was emotional. It just had the great, drama to it, and it's simple, but it's deceptively simple. There's just such nuance to that piano piece that played perfectly with the scenes. So I thought that they paired the music perfectly with all the different aspects of the film. So special effects and music, thoroughly enjoyed. So, and I just wanted to add, I didn't think when I was talking about the father and the onset of development, my mom's fine with her mind. I just wanted to mention just, I do care for her, but she's sharp as a tack. She was explaining hockey statistics to me earlier. So no fear of that with my life. I just wanted to mention in case anybody I didn't want to confuse matters, but anyway, I'll just give it back to you. This is KF5TDS, back to Matt.
Thank you. Let's see. KF5GRH, Melissa, you still with us?
I am. I was just on Discord telling Robinson and Holly about this net and about the movie, and just telling them it sounded real interesting. Yeah, I'm here, and it really does sound interesting. So keep talking about it. KI5GRH.
Okay, I don't think we have anybody else who is actually participating. I thought the music was really, really good. Now, this was done by the director's brother, and he passed away, I don't know, about the time the movie ended. I don't know what the story is, but he passed away. And, he had a lot of ideas about how it ought to be done, as they said, simple themes and out-of-sync loops, a mixture of superficial simplicity and underlying complexity. So he and the director chose a minimalist orchestration, often just a single guitar, and this is done on purpose. Mr. Sandman was done by 4 different groups. The Chordettes, of course, they were the original. The King Brothers, Emmylou Harris, and Gob. And there was a lot of other music in there that we all recognize because it's oldies. Other special effects, it's just, it's fascinating, like the falling raindrops and the flying leaves. Everywhere you look, there's a touch. There's just layer upon layer of thought went into this. It's not any accidents anywhere. So some people complain that the old Nemo was not realistic. I thought he was pretty good myself. I wish I had explained more about what happened between his age 34 and age 118. I think that would be interesting to know, but that would make for a very long movie, I guess. Okay, anybody else want to check in? It's almost midnight. Let's go to final thoughts. So if you want to talk about anything else, just please come with your call sign and I'll let you jump in. Wow, I guess we're all talked out. Well, Tom, tell us what you have for next week. Was somebody trying to check in here? Nothing heard. KE5ICX, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm trying to figure out why I selected this movie, but it looks like it's interesting. It's got Gary Oldman in it, so it must be good, right? It's called Interstate 60. So I'll double check that. It is available and it's still online, but I put it in the queue. That's next week, called Interstate 60 from 2002. Back to net control.
I'm sure it'll be wonderful, and I adore Gary Oldman. He can do no wrong. All right, we're at the end. Thanks, everybody, for participating. It was a great net, and we will see you all next week. This is WV5OZL Clear.
That was fun. Cat 5 Jerry.